that happens as you did before.
My mother really wanted us to be normal, so she didn't talk about it. You know, she really didn't talk about the fact that there are people who don't like your father and they tried to hurt him. You know, that was never talked about. But, I mean, we were under surveillance all the time, whether it was, you know, the bodyguards watching us and watching Daddy. I mean, there was always this feeling that there was danger lurking and things needed to be watched and protected.
The UAW assigned bodyguards, and although I saw them as exciting characters in our life, I mean, these were guys that carried guns. I know this is something that my mother was not comfortable with. I remember her telling the story about how she had a .38 pistol that she would put in her apron when she took the trash out, because we stayed in that house where Dad was shot.
No suspects were ever brought to justice for the Reuther shootings, and the FBI eventually closed the investigation. At the 1949 convention, in a rousing speech to his members, the resilient UAW president stated, "You can kill a man with a 12-gauge shotgun, but you cannot kill an idea. Whether one leader falls or many leaders fall, the UAW will march on."
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the first question. One of the things that the light bulb went on over my head watching this was I never really had such a clear understanding until I watched this of how much the unionization of America, the United Auto Workers, created the middle class. What I wanted to start with, what finally was the thing that impelled you into making the movie? I think you did the interviews with your grandfather when you were a film student.
Yeah. So I went to NYU Film School, and I mean, growing up in the family, being creative and hearing my grandfather's stories all the time. When I got into film school, knowing that I eventually wanted to be a storyteller myself, the whole thought is, what kind of story do I have immediate access to? So of course I thought of this Reuther story. So even as a young kid, I knew that someday I would have to tell some form of this story. So thankfully, while I was still in film school, I went down to Washington, D.C. My grandfather was still in his 80s and telling all these great stories, and I sat with him to do a long interview. I didn't know if it would be a documentary, what it would land in. I just knew I needed to capture Papa's stories, you know, on tape. So we did about 13 hours of interviews with him. And those are all the Victor Reuther interviews you see in the film. And then many years passed, I learned to become a filmmaker. I was doing commercial work and music-related things. My grandfather passed in 2004. My wife, who was my girlfriend at that time, came with me to my grandfather's memorial in Washington. And you know, I was still dreaming of doing this Reuther story someday. And she noticed in the audience, in this memorial hall, that there were senators and civil rights leaders and top union officials and people that could really tell this story. So she leaned over to me and said, maybe you should think sooner than later to make this film, because these men and women are here and can tell these stories. So she really was the catalyst to kind of hop in there and start making it happen. So in 2004, we started to think more on it, and then in 2007, I hired a co-producer. This is my first feature-length project, so to take on something this massive, I needed a co-producer, Nancy Roth, who in New York had done probably 12 other independent documentaries before, so she had all the connections. So really from then on, it just became sort of a full-on push from there. We did fundraising, and then, so it took about 4 years, from 2007 until the beginning of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question from the audience.
Want to be free, just take the take. Wait a minute, we don't sing that anymore. But we do sing this one. You women who want to be free, just take a little tip from me. Break out of that mold, we've all been sold. You got a fighting history. The fight for women's rights, with workers we'll unite. Like Mother Jones, bestir them bones. to the front of every fight. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union. I'm sticking to the Union. I'm sticking to the Union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the Union. I'm sticking to the Union till the day I die. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong. Okay, so we don't have much time, so I'm going to sing it this way. It is we that wash the dishes, scrub the floors and chase the dirt, feed the kids and send them off to school, and then we go to work, where we work for half the wages for a boss that likes to flirt. But the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong.
Join us for the next Mendocino Film Festival, May 31st through June 2nd, 2013. We'll see you there.